Many people think silence brings comfort, but sometimes silence simply means being unseen and unheard. You exist, you live for yourself, quietly. That was how my childhood passed. My name is Linda Harper. I'm the middle child in a family of 3. My older sister Maria was the favorite. She could do no wrong. As the firstborn, she received everyone's attention and admiration. My younger brother Edgar, on the other hand, was accepted no matter what he did, even when he misbehaved. After all, he was the baby of the family. But when I did the same things at that age, my parents responded with harsh criticism. I learned early that I had to figure everything out on my own. And when I stopped asking for help, no one even noticed. I believed that if I studied hard, kept my room clean, and helped around the house, maybe I'd hear a simple "thank you" or "we're proud of you." But those words never came. When Maria made the cheer squad, they bought her flowers. When Edgar's grades improved, he got a new Xbox, and I was left with silence. Even my birthdays were forgotten. When I turned 16, I didn't receive a single card. The neglect wasn't loud. It was constant and suffocating, as if my existence barely registered. After school, I cooked my own meals and washed my own clothes. Even though my parents had a car, I took the bus everywhere. I never asked them for anything. I knew I'd be turned down. If I said something like, "Can I come with you into the city?" my father would reply that he was going in a different direction, something like that. All of it weighed on me. And more, I wanted to leave quietly, without a scene. In a way, it felt like a test. I remember it clearly. On the day I turned 16, after receiving no birthday wishes, no calls, no messages, I accepted that I couldn't stay any longer. That evening, I packed a bag and quietly walked out of the house. I had found a small helper job behind a nearby cafe. The pay wasn't much, but it was enough to cover rent for a few weeks. Through someone I knew in the neighborhood, I found a roommate and left at the first opportunity. I didn't slam the door, I didn't leave a note, I just went. No one called that night. The silence continued the next day, and then for weeks. At first, I kept checking my phone, thinking maybe someone was worried or assumed I was staying at a friend's place. But days turned into weeks, and nothing changed. They truly hadn't noticed I was gone. Strangely, it didn't break me. It did the opposite. I felt lighter, freer. If I could disappear from their lives so easily, then maybe I had never really belonged in them to begin with. So I made a decision. If they didn't care enough to look for me, I wouldn't go back. The first days weren't easy, but that didn't stop me. I had chosen my own path. The owner of the apartment I rented was Sophia, a woman in her early 30s. She had a place on the outskirts of the city and lived alone. The apartment was simple, even a bit worn, clearly in need of repairs. But what mattered to me was how comfortable I felt there. Sophia was simple and kind, and we connected easily. To be honest, it didn't take long for us to get along very well. I started working as a barista at a small cafe tucked away on one corner of the city. Most mornings, I made coffee during the early shifts, and when someone didn't show up, I stayed in the evenings to help prepare desserts and simple meals. The work was fast-paced and chaotic, but it didn't bother me. Here, effort was noticed and rewarded. No one knew my family. No one expected anything from me beyond showing up on time, doing my job well, and keeping my space clean. For the first time in my life, being myself was enough. That fall, I enrolled in medical courses, a medical assistant certification program. I paid the tuition myself. The government covered part of it, and I made up the rest with my cafe wages, extra weekend shifts, and by stretching my budget with simple homemade meals. It was exhausting, but I rediscovered something I hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose and confidence. I mostly kept to myself, but slowly I began to make friends. We worked together, helped each other out. Late-night projects, overdue assignments, and far too many vending machine snacks brought us closer. I never talked to them about my parents. I didn't explain where I came from either. Most of them assumed I had grown up in foster care or had been kicked out of my home. I let them believe that. It was easier than explaining the truth, because the truth was this: I did have parents. They had simply forgotten I existed. Sometimes small moments pulled me back into the past, seeing a mother holding her son on the bus or a father carrying bags for his daughter stirred an old ache inside me. It felt like something freely given to everyone else had never been meant for me. But then I remembered that after I left home, no one had come looking for me. No messages, no calls, not even a simple, "Where are you?" Not Edgar, not Maria. They went on with their lives as if I had never been part of that family at all, and that made one thing clear: I hadn't walked away. I had been let go. At 20, I completed the 2-year medical program and was accepted into university. I started working as a lab assistant at the campus hospital while gaining hands-on experience for medical projects. The child who had once disappeared quietly was now building her own life. And still, all that time, no one from home had reached out. Until one day, my phone rang. I didn't answer. I just stared at the screen. When the call ended, I told myself it might be a mistake, maybe a wrong number. But then a voicemail came in. "Hi, it's me, your dad. How are you? We haven't seen you in a while. Your mom was asking about you too. Call me back, okay?" The message was short, cold, and empty. I didn't call back because this wasn't genuine concern. It was just a performance of concern. There was no apology, no acknowledgement that they had forgotten my birthday. For the first time in a long while, I felt anger, but not the kind that bursts out. It was a quiet, simmering rage inside me. 2 days later, I got a message from Maria. "Hi, Dad's been trying to reach you. Call him. It's important." I didn't respond. I checked her profile. Everyone was smiling, the same outfits, the same holiday photos, Edgar, my parents, as if I had never existed. Now they acted like I owed them an explanation. That made me even angrier. I hadn't disappeared. I hadn't blocked anyone. I had simply been unnoticed until their ignorance became inconvenient. Part of me wanted to yell, but I didn't. I had built a life now that didn't require explanations. If they wanted to understand, all they had to do was look in a mirror. 2 days later, another message from my dad arrived. I deleted it without opening. Whatever they were trying to fix, it was too late. I hadn't been lost. I had simply stopped waiting to be found. It took me a week to respond, not because I needed time to think. I already knew where I stood. There was only one feeling left: to see how far they would go. How many times they'd call, how many messages they'd send, how many vague, "we just want to talk" lines they'd throw out. None of it mattered. None of it addressed what was important. After much thought, I agreed to meet my father. I sent a brief message in the afternoon. "We can meet this Saturday, 1 p.m. Front Range Coffee House." I arrived at the cafe first, sat down and waited. Soon enough, there he was, entering the door. He looked tired, older than 2 years ago, definitely worn down. When he saw me, he hesitated for a moment. Smile? Apologize? He didn't know. He chose to smile. "Hi, Linda," he said, sitting across from me. "You look well." I nodded, said nothing. I just waited. He ordered a coffee. I didn't. He cleared his throat. "It's been a long time." My expression remained neutral. He wanted a meeting. I was the response. "We were surprised you left. You didn't say anything." That caught me off guard. Surprised? I had left silently, and for 2 years no one had noticed. Maybe something in my face made him pause. Then he added, "We thought you were at a friend's place. Months went by and it got hard to reach you." Was that an excuse? They hadn't tried because they didn't know where I was? He went on talking about how the house wasn't the same, how Maria had been busy, how Edgar had missed me. He presented these as proof, but it all sounded artificial. What struck me the most, though, was what he didn't say. No apology, no acknowledgement that years of being ignored were unacceptable, no admission that my absence hadn't changed their lives at all. So I asked, "Why now?" He was caught off guard. What do you mean? I mean, so much time has passed. What changed that made you try to find me now? He paused for a moment, then said, Your grandmother passed away. There's tension in the family. We want to reconnect. There it was. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about realizing they had hurt me. It was just another family problem, and now they needed someone. I stood up. I'm sorry about your grandmother, I said, but I am not the person you call when everything falls apart. I'm already gone. He wanted to protest, but I was already putting on my coat. When I left, you didn't care about me, I said. You didn't even ask if I was okay. I didn't come here to reconnect. I came to let you know I've moved on. Without waiting for a response, I left. Not out of anger, not to hurt him. I simply no longer needed his validation. The next day, he called again. I didn't answer. Then he sent a message. We should have handled things differently. Your mother wants to see you, too. I wasn't surprised. I had seen this coming the moment I walked out of the cafe. They weren't reaching out because they understood me. They were reaching out because they had lost control. Before, it had been easy for me to ignore them. It had been easy to assume I'd always be there when needed. Now, after setting boundaries, they were trying to pull me back. I didn't respond immediately. I sat down for a day and revisited the past in my mind. Forgotten birthdays, silent family dinners, the absence of simple attention from anyone. Everything played vividly before my eyes. I realized they still hadn't apologized. Not once, not openly, not sincerely. They never said the words that mattered. Instead, they hid behind vague phrases like, "Those were difficult times," as if that could erase entire years. Now, they were planning my return as if nothing had happened. I sent only one message. I hope you're doing well. I've built my own life and I don't want to reopen the past. Please respect that. I sent it and turned off my phone. This silence was different. It wasn't heavy or suffocating like the one I'd grown up with. I had chosen my own doors now. Soft sunlight filtered through the window. Old paintings on the walls, colors I loved, books that felt like home. The coffee machine hummed quietly, and I let myself listen. I cooked a simple meal, turned on some music, and sat down with a cup of tea. I knew deep inside that this quiet belonged to me. Here, I felt completely free and at ease. That weekend, I worked on an independent project. One of my former teachers connected me with a small nonprofit, and I helped them build a simple donation management system. The work mattered. It reminded me that I was enough, that I had value even without asking for attention. The following week, a message came from Maria. "Dad is hurt. You didn't have to be this cold." For 20 years, I had given them every chance to notice me. I helped without being asked, waited without demanding. But the moment I stopped, I became cold. To them, it had never been love. It had been convenience. I didn't reply. Not to burn bridges, but because I was no longer the one holding the match. I simply stepped away from the fire. That didn't make me heartless. It made me whole. Weeks passed. The calls and messages stopped. Silence returned, but this time it was calm and liberating. I wasn't waiting to be remembered anymore. I had a steady job, a home I could afford, and a simple, peaceful life. I rarely spoke about my family. When asked, I'd just say, "We're not in touch." I didn't explain, not out of shame, but because I no longer felt the need to. They still didn't understand what they had done, and maybe they never would. I no longer wait for that realization. Healing didn't come from confrontation. It came from investing in my future, day by day. Sharing a last name doesn't mean sharing value. I found my worth in friendships, in teachers who believed in me, in late-night conversations, and in a life shared with people who never treated me like a backup plan. Sometimes I wonder who I might have been if I'd grown up surrounded by that kind of love. Then I remember, I am shaped not by what I was given, but by what I built. I built this life. They didn't help me move forward, but they couldn't stop me either. And in the end, that's what carried me on. People ask me if I ever want to go back, not physically, but emotionally, to reconnect, to give it another chance, to finally find what I never had before. I understand why they ask. The world teaches us that family is everything, that blood means forgiveness, return, reconciliation. But what if going back means returning to a place that never felt like home? What if it means shrinking again, staying silent, sitting among people who ask shallow questions while ignoring the years that were lost? I don't hate them. Hate takes energy. It demands attention. I've already given enough of both. What I feel now is distance, not coldness, not bitterness. The person I am today, someone who survived nights filled with doubt, built a life from nothing, and found her own strength, doesn't belong to their story. I used to believe I had to forgive them in order to move forward. But healing doesn't always require closure. Sometimes healing is choosing not to explain anymore, not waiting for an apology that will never come. I didn't choose to be invisible back then. Now I choose to be seen, on my own terms, by people who make me feel safe, who don't demand access to my pain. I've built a life I love. It isn't perfect, but it's real and peaceful, filled with people who choose to be there. Sometimes messages from the past still arrive. I reply politely, but I don't return. I'm where I belong now, grounded, steady, free. Maybe they'll never understand me, and that's okay. I left because I deserved better than being forgotten, and I found it the moment I stopped waiting. There was no grand reconciliation in this story, no doors slammed open, no tearful embraces. But sometimes the strongest endings are quiet ones, like making peace with yourself. If you saw a part of yourself in this story, know that you are not alone. The silence that once held you down is not your end. Sometimes a person's real life begins the moment they stop waiting. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like the video. Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments. We read them. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to the channel.